What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today we're going to talk to you on Lucid. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what's been coming out associated to Lucid, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So Lucid is up 0.32%. It's been lagging the broader market today and plus the EV market. Looking at the intraday though, you can tell that just big money is not getting in. A lot of this was done by AI and very low volume in fact as well. So 16.3 million shares being traded, 42.7 is the average, and we are about to head into power hour. So it is really sad to see that Rivian and Polestar and several other stocks are rallying, and whereas big money is just overlooking Lucid. So these are the transactions that have occurred on the secondary market above $100,000. So today there's been only two, and that's been the case for the last little bit. Just big money not really giving two craps about Lucid. And of course that stems from their recent earnings. As I've said, like investors, retail investors, like institutions, they need a reason to justify buying into the company. If not, then why? Why would I buy Lucid right now? And I feel like Lucid's, the timeliness of their earnings worked out perfectly because the broader market is rallying right now. So I've said that in the past couple of videos, the fact that I'm very surprised that that $3 support did hold, and that has to do with the broader market. So the fear and greed index right now is at 77. So you're naturally seeing the broader market push up higher. Dead companies, like garbage companies, are rallying like crazy. So Lucid actually has been very, very lucky about the timeliness again of their earnings, because institutions just don't care. And that does stem from how things were really handled during the actual earnings call. So for instance, I just want to bring this up. This was the actual Q&A, so the questions that retail was posing to management. This is a very good example of why, for instance, institutions might not be really caring to get into Lucid. And so obviously the next big thing for Lucid is the gravity, right? And so of course people who are investing in 2024 are hedging and really hoping that gravity is going to be a very big success. So let's look at this. So Landon did say, when will the gravity reservations open? Is there a target date for first deliveries? But Peter does say, I'm hoping we'll deliver some gravity vehicles later this year, but naturally you should expect bigger volume to be around 2025, blah, blah, blah. And so this question is now for the individuals in my comments that defend Peter. Like, why do you like him? I think he's a genius. He's very smart, but at the same time, him being in a CEO role that makes him look stupid, makes investors look stupid, and makes the company look stupid. You realize how he just completely ignored this. And so logically, he would be talking about that when they plan on opening up reservations, because that is the next big thing. Gravity is going to save Lucid in 2024. So why not talk on when that saving grace is going to occur and when you're going to be opening up reservations? So the fact that you completely ignore that, and throughout the actual call, he does use some very weird wording saying that he hopes that will deliver later this year. That kind of, honestly, the fact that they've failed on every single price or timeliness of everything in the past, I would not bet that Lucid honestly will be on time with the gravity, which is unfortunate, but that's beside the point though. Peter's an idiot, long story short, and he must know someone. He must be the brother-in-law or someone at the PIF, because for them to go through 3 big VP changes over the last 2 years, or I think even the year and a half, how is he still CEO? And I know some people really hated Sherry, but Sherry, this is the perfect moment that she would step in and save this question. So all in all, this is why institutions probably do not want to invest in Lucid. And yeah, and actually while I'm on here, I just wanted to briefly talk on this. A lot of retail absolutely loves Apple and always likes the idea that Apple and Lucid are going to have something in the works. Even though in previous videos I did mention that from a very credible source that Apple and Lucid have had discussions in the past, just Apple was demanding too much money. So it literally came down to that. And so ultimately, this is why I've said that in the past, but regardless, people still want to hope on this. So this question, are there any updates regarding future partnerships with Apple? And I really hate Peter's answers. So almost every single earnings, course, this question is always brought up. Peter answers always the same thing, and he does it in a way that is kind of dangling a carrot in front of investors. Say, hey, you know what? There might be hope in the future, but it's like we all know that there's not. But then again, this hopefully the news that came out today will close that door of any investors that are still hanging on to that rumor. So it looks like Apple is finally canceling their work on their electric vehicle. So Project Titan, after a decade, is finished. So Apple's obviously focusing on generative AI. So that's where the big money is right now in the market. And even over and above that, at the same time, you're seeing a lot of companies such as even Mercedes and many others moving away, doing a massive U-turn from EVs. So obviously, I think Apple personally is doing the right move. And this, again, is coming from a Lucid investor standpoint. At least we can close the door for that. Let me know your thoughts on that. Are you sad about that? Upset? What's your thoughts? Or did you think that this was never going to work from the get-go? So what's your thoughts? When it comes down to Lucid, ever since their earnings, shorts have been doubling down. So right now, shorts are increasing 1.26 million shares. 30.11% of the free float is being shorted. 264.8 million shares overall are being shorted, and cost to borrow average is 34.1%. As far as options, $267,000 in calls being purchased versus 329 in puts. So this is very abnormal. The fact that based on the sentiment, 60% of all the options being done today are bearish, that's very negative, especially comparing it to almost any growth stock today. There's a lot of optimism in the market, just not with Lucid. So again, it kind of does suck as far as that goes. Of the call options that are being purchased, there's a consensus for it to be above around 350 in the next couple of weeks. And then looking at puts, it's anticipated to be sub $3. That $3 has been the saving grace for Lucid, in all honesty. But right now with it at $3.15, it is just trading between this S1 and the pivot. And as I've said over the last couple of videos, I do anticipate for at least the foreseeable future, it just to be range bound between these 2 points. So for someone that does options, that is absolutely key to find a stock that is very volatile and that you'll get a pretty good premium on either selling calls or selling puts. Very advantageous. But just to quickly go over here, let's look at the technicals. So right now it is lower percentile of the Bollinger Band, below a lot of the key pivotal and moving averages, and stochastic you do see it at 20. So for instance, if Lucid was to come out with whether it be the gravity reservations or something else, then yeah, you could have a rush of value investors right now, especially considering it is very oversold, but it all comes down on management. Number of retail investors are getting out, so they're kind of tired of the BS with Lucid. And plus, you can tell in the comments, there's still a lot of optimistic individuals, but I do think the majority of individuals are just getting tired. Like, we've waited almost about close to 3 years now for Lucid to get their stuff together, and nothing has really amounted to anything. Just a lot of false promises, and then again you get retail just saying, well, it might be better in 6 months, in a year, or something like that. It just, when will it end, right? Because in order for you to do a investment, you have to see some actual growth, and you didn't see any growth for 2024 from their last earnings. So let me know your thoughts on that. So I do want to quickly play this video, or at least a minute and a bit from this, because this does talk on GDP numbers and data points, and GDP is coming out tomorrow. So I feel like a lot of people will get a lot of good information out of this. So let me know your thoughts on that.
Stephanie Roth, the chief economist at Wolfe Research. Michael Schumacher is still sticking with us as well. Michael, I want to get your reaction here because, you know, over the last almost decade and a half, we talked to you so often about the bond market and rates action. What exactly did that 7-year auction tell you?
Yeah, it was decent. I think Rick's a pretty tough grader. Frankly, I'm glad he was not my professor back in college. But when you think about what the auction's telling us, to me, it's kind of a natural lead-in to month end. And if you think about all the investors out there who have to rebalance portfolios over the end of the month, and there are quite a few, whether it's pension funds or others, they'd say, well, stocks have done really well this month, bonds have done poorly. What does that mean I have to do? I have to buy some bonds. This is the last auction of the month. I suspect you're going to see it's already cleared decently. It's probably in the aftermarket going to do okay, but it sets the stage for a pretty decent rebalance over the next, call it 4 to 5 trading sessions into bonds. So I think the very near-term path is pretty good.
All right, we got an idea, Stephanie, of what Michael's view of the economy is right now. I'd like to get your take on this idea that the U.S. is not destined for some kind of a hard landing, and that almost has become a base case scenario that the U.S. will either soft land or maybe not land at all and just kind of keep coasting along with this economic growth picture that's modest but might get stronger?
Yeah, we totally agree. We're expecting a soft landing. That's our base case. And for us, the soft landing is 2% GDP and inflation heading back down towards 2%. We don't necessarily need to get GDP running well below trend in order to get there, and that's what we learned last year, that growth can actually stay pretty modest with inflation coming down. And dare I say, inflation actually appears to be somewhat transitory, even though we don't necessarily use that word anymore.
We don't use that word, Stephanie, because it wasn't transitory for a good couple of years there, and it became very, very, very not good to use that term because of it. There's a reason why it's a triggering word for so many people. We did get a couple of hotter inflation reads than some people have expected. We've got PCE coming out later on, right? The Fed's preferred inflation gauge. Do we think as though inflation could not yet be a mission accomplished scenario for the Fed and for policymakers?
The Fed's definitely going to want to see more data, and January was a setback, but we very much believe it was driven by seasonal factors. We were cautious heading into the print, and the data was even stronger than we had anticipated. And this is driven by, largely related to annual price increases that tend to go into effect in the month of January, which is catching up to the prior year's strong inflation data. So we don't expect this to continue. We think this is very much a January trend, and then in February and March, things should look a lot more normal. But the Fed will be likely on hold until June, which is when we expect that they're going to be able to cut. By that point, the year-over-year inflation rate is going to be below 2.5%, and they're going to feel a lot more comfortable.
So yeah, that's some expectations for at least the next couple of days, because GDP is coming out Wednesday, PCE is on Thursday. It's very interesting to hear what she mentioned, because I even did say that on my video, I believe it was on Sunday, on some expectations for this upcoming week and how the market might give it a hall pass essentially for this upcoming PCE on Thursday. So who knows, we'll just have to wait and see. But regardless, let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Have you been buying? Have you been selling? What have you been doing with Lucid? And one final thing, as I've been sharing with you, this promo does end on the 29th. So sign up for an account with Moomooth for $100 at it, and they give you 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of this. Link in the description below, and also the comments. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.